Hello, and thank you all for coming. My name is Lori Martinelli, and I am the Executive Director of NAMI Massachusetts. And I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank our CEOs who have signed on to our pledge. Let me just start by telling you who's going to be speaking this morning, and then I want to tell you a little bit about our campaign. So our first speaker will be Tom Glenn, who is the CEO of Massport, and Massport is our host, and we're very grateful to Tom and Massport, so thank you very much. And after Tom will be Steve Rosenfeld, who is the president of the NAMI Mass board. And then following Steve will be Tim Murphy, who is the CEO of Beacon Health Options. And I must say, he's been a wonderful mentor to me and to our whole campaign team. We've learned a lot from Tim, so we're very grateful. Joyce Murphy is the Vice Chancellor of UMass Medical Schools, Commonwealth Medicine. She'll be speaking. And last but certainly not least is Evan Rockefeller, who is a NAMI in Our Own Voice presenter and someone who has experienced stigma in the workplace. And he's going to be talking about that. So let me just explain briefly what our CEO Against Stigma campaign is. Last year we got a grant from the Attorney General, which allowed us to launch this 2-year campaign. And in the first step of this campaign, we actually conducted a survey last summer of 800 voters, and we learned a lot of positive things about mental health issues and how the public is really very supportive of these issues. But there were some questions that helped us decide that we wanted to focus on the workplace. And one of the questions was, if you were advising someone with mental illness, would you advise them to tell their family? And of course it was a very high response, 94%, which is what we expected. And the second question is, would you advise someone with mental illness to tell their friends? And of course it was also high, about 74%. And the third question was, would you advise someone with mental illness to tell their coworker? And then the number plunges down to 27%. So we really felt that this was a need, and the more research we did, it uncovered the need to address stigma in the workplace, which is why we're doing this campaign. So if you are a CEO Against Stigma, and we have several of the CEOs here in front of us and in the back as well, you will sign a pledge to be a CEO Against Stigma. And let me just tell you briefly what that pledge is. First is you will show personal leadership to educate yourself about mental illness and the best practices in the field. And I should say we're starting with the CEO because it's really the CEO who is responsible for the culture at the workplace, and the CEO is really the change agent in the workplace. So this is a top-down. Think of it as a top-down campaign, although we certainly are bringing employees along with us. The second part of the pledge is that you will have In Our Own Voice, a NAMI In Our Own Voice program in the workplace. And many CEOs have had In Our Own Voice. It's a 1-hour program where 2 people tell their recovery story. It's very, very powerful. And it's been proven to be one of the most effective ways to combat stigma. So we're very excited about that. You also pledge to create a stigma-free workplace by encouraging open dialogue among your employees about mental illness. And you start distributing NAMI Mass materials for employees and managers. We're asking you to examine your own health benefits to make sure that they are effective for mental illness. And if you have an employee assistance program, EAP, which many large employers do, we are asking you to ensure that it is welcoming to all people with mental health issues. And then finally, we want you to maintain public awareness about this issue, and certainly we want you to lean on NAMI Mass because we have a dedicated website, which is on your material. It's a front page there. It's ceos.namimass.org. And it's right on the cover of your press packet, so please look at that. So I would like to now turn it over to Tom Glenn, who is going to talk briefly, and I just want to say that Tom has been the CEO of Massport since 2012. Massport runs Logan Airport, Hanscom Field, Worcester Airport, and the Port of Boston. He has a workforce of 1,200 people. I almost said 12,000, 1,200 people. And he recently signed on to our campaign, which we're thrilled about. And Tom has an MSW, so he is very sensitive to this issue. So please join me in welcoming Tom Glenn.
I've said this a few times, but I haven't actually checked, but I think I'm the only person with an MSW who has responsibility for an airport. I'm pretty sure. So I just want to say a few things. First of all, I want to thank Laurie and Steve for putting this effort together. And I was thinking as I was seated there with Steve on one side and Tim on the other side, those of us who have been students of healthcare policy in Massachusetts would know that one of the reasons why we have the Massachusetts healthcare reform in 2006 was the work that Laurie and Steve did outside of the government and the work that Tim did inside the government, and what seemed like kind of a big, bold, ambitious, unachievable task of getting universal coverage 15 years ago was achieved by some outside folks and some inside folks, mainly Tim, who was the Secretary of Health and Human Services under Governor Romney. So as we start this campaign today, we should have in mind that there's a track record here of success, particularly with Laurie and Steve, who have been serial impact players in our community over the years. So as soon as I heard that they were putting this together, I knew that we were going to have a successful effort. And I just want to underscore what Laurie said about thanking the Attorney General's office for having the kind of willingness to take on something that's a little bit unusual for that office, but kind of recognizing the broader way in which law and social policy have to interact. So, why is the Massport CEO signing up for this in addition to the fact that I have an MSW? And, the reason is we do have 1,100 people or 1,200 people who work at Massport, but at the airport, 17,000 people work. A lot of them work for American Airlines or JetBlue or TSA or the FBI. So, we're very familiar with all different kinds of work environments. And we create a high-stress work environment because of the nature of shift work, the nature of interactions with passengers, and so, we create an environment that we need to be mindful that we need to be balancing on the other side our obligations to try to make people be in a situation where they can address, confront, and talk about issues of mental health that are occurring to them or members of their family, and recognize that there are resources that we have available at Massport. But we have to first destigmatize the topic, because until people feel comfortable talking about it, it's really difficult for us to kind of mobilize the resources that we could mobilize to be in support of them. So I think others may talk about this phenomenon of presenteeism, where people are at work but they're not really fully engaged because they're concerned about other things that are going on in their lives, and that's another aspect that we want to try to touch on in this campaign. So I was happy to sign up. I think this is a great opportunity for us to once again try to provide a little bit of leadership in Massachusetts, and it's great we've already gotten so many employers involved. We're giving our own employees through this effort a license to speak up and a license to pursue care, and I think both of those are very, very important milestones as we really think about trying to reposition the issues of mental health in our community. So that's why I'm here. I do want to say just a word, Steve has had a great career in the public sector, general counsel to the governor, and an even maybe greater career outside as an advocate on many, many issues. So his working with Laurie, I think, has really created the foundation for a very successful effort. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
All right, well, thank you. It's great to be here. I'm Steve Rosenfeld. I'm chairman of the board of NAMI, and I just want to say that we started CEOs Against Stigma for reasons that are contained, actually, in this report, which we're making public for the first time today. It's called Bad for Business, the Business Case for Overcoming Mental Illness Stigma in the Workplace. And we felt the need to do this because there are so many facts that it's essential for all of us to know that make a connection between workplace mental illness, principally depression disorder and anxiety disorder, the loss of business productivity, and the influence and stigma in preventing necessary treatment. Those are three linked ideas. And in other countries, Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, Canada, a great deal of research has been done and a great deal of public conversation has been had about this. In America, not so much. In America, there has been research done, good research done, but the amount of public discussion and public dissemination really is very, very small. And that's why we have written this report. It tries to gather together all of the best research, boil it down, try to make it readable, and to document it. Because I can remember several months ago talking to a friend of mine who is a CEO, and I said, you know, mental illness is the single greatest cause of disability in the workplace. And he looked at me and said, are you sure about that? Can you show me some numbers on that? And this is a wonderful man, and I love him, but he was just reflecting that this is not widely known information. It's known among the employee assistance programs, and it's known among social service agencies, but in terms of the world at large, no, it's not. So we did this, and I want to say, people know that I'm very proud of this. Last 2 pages, 75 footnotes, to make it clear that this is documented good information, because we hope that we can be helpful in not only bringing the workplace to a level of supportiveness, but bringing awareness to a much higher level than it is right now in this country. So, what are these facts that are documented in this report? Well, as I said, it's well documented. Untreated mental illness, in particular depression disorder and anxiety, is the single greatest cause of worker disability in America, much greater than physical disorders. Second, the result is that untreated conditions like depression and anxiety cost businesses tens of billions of dollars a year here in this country. Because of stigma, too many employees don't seek help. Do you know that 70% of those who need help go untreated? This is 70% of employees in the workplace who are having mental health issues don't seek help. We know this because there have been research studies done, surveys, and this has been going on now, I would say for the last 20 years, that people have been concerned about this enough to do rigorous research. Why do they go untreated? They stay silent because they fear that seeking help will isolate them and ultimately ostracize them from the workplace. This phenomenon of not seeking help while working is called presenteeism. It's really peculiar to mental illness. People with physical illness tend to seek help, but people with mental illness, not so much. They're reluctant. So we encounter this phenomenon called presenteeism, working while sick. It mostly happens with depression and anxiety, and here's something that we found very remarkable. 80% of the productivity loss on account of mental illness is on account of presenteeism. People who are at work. Documented productivity loss in terms of the ability of a business to do its business and be productive. This campaign wants to change that. Research shows that workers who do receive treatment get better. Over 2 years, and this is a recent study, I think it was in the mid-2000s, a 28% improvement in absenteeism and a 91% improvement in presenteeism. And this is tens of thousands of workers who are part of this study. So, and research also shows that the cost of depression treatment alone is fully offset by the savings that are achieved by this improvement in absenteeism and presenteeism. So we call this campaign, so that's some of the information that's in this. You all have a copy of this, and we will be papering the walls with them as time goes on. We have a national convention in San Francisco of National Alliance of Mental Illness. We plan to bring several truckloads of this book there because NAMI National has no information of this sort, and so we want to spread the word. But why do we call the campaign CEOs Against Stigma? Well, also documented in this report is that CEOs are the individuals most responsible for their workplace culture. When CEOs commit themselves to a truly supportive workplace, as they do by committing to our 6 part pledge, and as the wonderful CEOs here have already done, treatment happens. The research shows treatment does happen. And so we hope this report and this campaign will spread the word so that Massachusetts can be the leader in fighting stigma in the workplace. So thanks a lot. Thanks for listening to me. And next we have Tim. And I just want to say a word about Tim Murphy, who's the CEO of Beacon Health Options. As Lori said earlier, CEOs these are all wonderful CEOs, but Tim in particular has been helpful in educating us, because we came into this not because we're experts, but because we recognized that there was a need. I hope someday we'll be experts. I hope doing the research on this report will take us along that way. But Tim is an expert, and so he's given us guidance about how to shape this campaign. He taught me a lot about employee assistance programs that I just didn't know, and I see now that it's a vital part of this campaign. So in this and so many other ways, Tim's a kind of a patron saint for what we're doing here. So Tim, thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Steve and Laurie and Tom, for welcoming me here today. And I'm just very enthusiastic to sign up for this campaign to be a CEO on behalf of our organization, Beacon Health Options, that is embracing what I think is very necessary, which is to have an environment for our employees to feel comfortable that if they are struggling with a mental health condition, that they can have safe conversations, that we can be an employer that provides the right type of benefits and supports on their behalf. And in many ways, that is easy for me to do. I run an organization that organizes mental health benefits, employee assistance services on behalf of 47 million Americans. And we have 5,000 dedicated employees, of which about 1,800 of them are licensed clinicians. And so in that regard, we are always very much supportive of what NAMI does and the work that Laurie and Steve and Karen and others here in Massachusetts do to raise awareness, to ensure that there are the right types of services available, not only for those individuals living with the condition, but for their family members and for their friends. And so when I think about signing up for this campaign and why I think that there is such value to it, I think about it from two perspectives. One, as a CEO, what I'm obviously very focused on is ensuring that the employees who come to work every day can deliver constructive results for the company. I'm hopeful to create an environment where they feel that they can fully express their professional capabilities in a manner that will deliver value to the people that we serve. And what you recognize in that is that you want your people to be engaged, not to be distracted. And what you find, though, with individuals who are themselves struggling and living with a mental health condition is that they're not always engaged. They are worrying about ways in which they can feel better. I would also note that that doesn't extend just to the individual, family members who come to work every day. And so if you have an environment where people in your workforce don't feel supported, don't feel that it's a welcoming environment, and they have a situation where they can't fully give to you and to the company, that is, from an organization perspective, a breakdown, a way in which we're not going to deliver for our clients. And so when I think about hiring and training and all the costs that get embedded in when your workforce isn't fully engaged in doing what they're supposed to do, that's a loss. And so in that regard, I think it's important for leaders of organizations and CEOs in this particular instance to understand that, recognize that, and set an environment that allows their employees to feel that they're in a company that will provide them the right type of support. Because when you do that, they'll be then getting treatment if that's what they need, and they'll be fully engaged in their job, and they'll be delivering for you as an employer. And I think that's important. The second reason why I am very enthusiastic about backing this effort is having had personal experience in my family with mental illness, and having been an employee and not always a CEO, having lived through that part of my life, I can tell you that I was not productive, that I was distracted, that I needed to go and make sure that things were right on the home front. And, and I'll just be candid, I was embarrassed. I didn't want to tell my employer. I didn't want to disclose that we were struggling through this. Didn't feel like it was the right place to go do that. I would hope and expect that over the 20 years when I went through this experience to where we are today, that we're in a better place and that employers are more welcoming. But I think it's campaigns like this that make this effort worthwhile, because I think that there are still things to do, still things to improve. So I'm, again, just very pleased to join with Steve and Laurie and Tom and the other CEOs that are here today, because I think it's a very important effort. And so with that, I'm going to introduce my good friend and colleague, Joyce Murphy, the Executive Vice Chancellor for Commonwealth Medicine, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, and good morning, all. It's a pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to speak to you. So at Commonwealth Medicine, UMass Medical School, our mission is to truly improve access to high-quality health care, reduce health disparities, and improve the lives of individuals with disabilities. And that includes expanding job opportunities as well as enhancing living situations so that all people with disabilities can function at their highest level possible. So I signed on to the pledge as a CEO Against Stigma because it made perfect sense to me. I've always said that our employees, our human resources, are our most valuable asset. And if we don't take care of our employees, then we don't take care of our business. So one of our key initiatives, as I mentioned, is to increase employment rates among people with disabilities, and that includes people with mental illness. CEOs Against Stigma takes our mission one step further within our own organization by ensuring that we create a positive work environment and employment opportunities for those living with mental illness or those caring for a loved one with mental illness. By educating our employees and opening up the dialogue, I believe we really create a much healthier workplace. As part of the campaign, we've been provided with a toolkit and resources to educate our employees, including our managers. Mental illness is not a condition to be kept in the shadows. Think about if you were struggling with cancer or heart disease. Of course, people would ask for help and they would get help. It's time that we really stood up and helped all of our family, friends, and colleagues with mental illness. One of the commitments I made is to bring NAMI's In Our Own Voice presentation to my organization. And in fact, that presentation was just heard by my employees and myself on Monday of this week, and it was spectacular. It really heightened the awareness of our workforce and gave us the opportunity to have a really great dialogue about this issue. The presentation really educated people about what it's like to live and work every day with mental health conditions, many of which affect us, again, personally or in our families, our neighbors, our friends. So I think that if there was any question that my employees didn't know how committed we were, that they certainly understand now, and we need to continue to reinforce that and spread the word and be open to questions and concerns. So we want to ensure that we have a caring workplace where supports are available to help all of our people who are struggling with mental health themselves or in their families. I truly encourage every business executive across the entire spectrum to take a hard look at his or her work environment and the policies related to disabilities, and specifically those focused on people with mental health issues. Sign on to the CEOs Against Stigma. It's not only good for you and your employees, but it's good for business. Thank you. And how could I forget? The most important speaker here this morning, Evan Rockefeller, whom I had the real great experience of meeting on Monday, because Evan and another colleague came out to meet with us to do the NAMI In Our Own Voice. And Evan I thanked you then and I thank you again. You did such a beautiful job for my employees to really have the chance to see Evan and his colleague talking about their experiences living and working with mental health issues and experiencing stigma in the workforce. I don't think there's anything we could have done that would have been more impactful, Evan. So I thank you, and please welcome to the podium.
Hi, my name is Evan Rockefeller. I am an occupational therapist. I work for Boston Area Human Service Agency, and I also happen to have bipolar disorder. Over the 16 years since my diagnosis, I've had several significant experiences of work-related discrimination related to stigma. In those situations, when I formally disclosed my diagnosis to my employers, it immediately became much more difficult to continue working for them. In one instance, I was fired outright, and the other times the process of negotiating reasonable accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act was made unnecessarily arduous and stressful. In my early 20s, I worked as a paratechnician at an animal hospital, and when I disclosed, they claimed that I was, quote, aggressive and violent, and then fired me when I went out on disability, stating that it was, quote, based upon the length of your disability, end quote. And that's when the receptionist at the practice had actually been out for 1 week longer than the leave I was requesting for shoulder surgery. More recently, in a more recent job, when I requested accommodations and gave multiple suggestions as to what might work, that employer rejected every one of my suggestions. When I reminded them of their obligation to enter what's called the interactive process to negotiate accommodations, the director of HR snapped at me, "I don't need you to explain the ADA to me." No accommodations were provided until I indicated that I was on the verge of filing a complaint with the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination. On the other hand, in recent years, as I've started disclosing to coworkers much more casually and discussing mental health-related concepts with colleagues on a regular basis, I found people to be much more responsive. And I absolutely feel that the CEOs Against Stigma campaign is the way to start breaking down the barriers of stigma in the workplace from the top down. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Evan. And Evan is, like you said, an Inner Own Voice presenter. We have dozens of trained Inner Own Voice presenters. So being a CEO Against Stigma means that you will host Inner Own Voice in your workplace. So we're very excited about that. And I just want to recognize we have several CEOs here, and we're so thrilled you're here. Bill Sprague is with Bay Cove Human Services. Andy Pond is with Justice Resource Institute. Harry Schulman is with South Shore Mental Health. Bob Master is with Commonwealth Care Alliance. Kevin Taub is Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. And Susan Coakley is BMC HealthNet. Wow, we're really happy you're here. And I should say that while right now we have 25 CEOs on board, our goal is 250 CEOs. We have a very ambitious agenda. 250 CEOs with a footprint of 500,000 employees. So we cannot rest till that happens. So we're very happy to have you part of the campaign. And now we'll take questions. Yes?
Just to succinctly sum up, what is CEOs Against Stigma?
Yes. CEOs Against Stigma is a campaign to raise awareness and educate the CEO so that the workplace can be more open to issues around mental illness among their employees. How's that? Good. Other questions? Yes.
Are you offering any incentive for CEOs to sign at this moment?
What do you mean by incentive?
I don't know, just any sort of incentive other than just, oh, it's a good for your business, it's good for...
We have talked about, I don't know if this would be an incentive, but actually I know Harry raised this with us, having some kind of plaque or maybe a bumper sticker to say that this is a CEO Against Stigma to make it welcoming to other employees. But can you think of any incentive?
I just want to say that the
Joyce.
greatest incentive I could imagine is a productive workforce.
Yeah.
We're going to help, in partnership with CEOs, these CEOs and many others, improve the bottom line.
Yep.
You know, the report that I referenced earlier is titled Bad for Business.
Yeah.
Stigma is bad for business.
Yeah.
So I would think, and I do think, that the incentive of an improved, productive workforce is more than enough incentive for this campaign.
And Joyce, you wanted to add
Yeah, I was
something?
going to say that basically, but also I think an incentive is that NAMI is providing CEOs with the training and education for the workforce. So as Evan and his colleague came out and met with my team, my employees this week, that's a huge help because I think having training and development available through NAMI makes a big difference.
Right, and that's a great point. And on our CEO website, ceos.namimass.org, we have a lot of toolkit items that Joyce had mentioned, guidelines for supervisors, information for employees. So we have a lot of resources on our website. So, okay, well, it sounds like everyone is on board, and please help yourself to the yummy snacks and pastries that we have, and thank you again for coming.
Can we ask all the CEOs to step forward for a photo?
No, that's a great idea.